Welcome. This is a recorded session of the Post-Quantum Cryptography Conference of the PKI Consortium, which took place in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This conference is made possible through the support of the PKI Consortium Post-Quantum Cryptography Working Group and our sponsors SSL.com, Entrust, Keyfactor, HID, and Crypto4A. And with exceptional organizational support from SSL.com, Keyfactor, Logius, POS DigiCert, Baker Tilly, MSC Trustgate, and Digitaurus. Join the discussion. Join the PKI Consortium. Go to pkic.org/join.
So we're moving along with our next speaker, Shane Kelly. He's a senior crypto technologist with DigiCert. In short order, he's spent many years solving practical problems for clients on applying cryptology in a broad array. He'll be speaking to us today about how his experiences in applying PQC cryptography in useful ways and his experiences on that front. So without further ado, let's introduce Shane Kelly from DigiCert. Thank you.
Hello. Oh wait, I gotta be in frame on the camera here. I tend to move a lot. Sorry if this happens. I'll try and keep it where we need to be. So we're starting at 106. My presentation is on certificates, which isn't too surprising based on where I work. So we want to talk about how we can use PQC certificates right now on the internet. So we'll go through some objectives and then talk about why we started. So we have some key points that we're going to try and get through. So I'm bearing the lead here. This is the presentation for you. I'm going to make the case that we should start using MLDSA 44 certificates right now. I think we should start with a leaf certificates. I should be able to say that word by now. Instead of the root. So a lot of people start with the root. I'm suggesting we can start with the leaf. And then we can work our way up the chain if you find that it actually works and you didn't, break your entire system. And then we'll talk a little bit about the future. We know that there's NISTs coming up and there's a few other possible options that we could use. So we'll talk about those things going forward. So if anyone was paying attention to last PKI Consortium in Austin, there was a really good presentation by Luke Valenta from Cloudflare, and it was entitled, "The Internet is Not Ready for PQC Certificates." And so this is sort of a way to get around some of the problems that they came up with and try and figure out how we can use some of these PQC certificates. So there was a few things that were highlighted there, like they had some problems, and I've distilled them and added sort of another one of why people say we have problems with using PQC, right? It's too big, it's too slow, and it's too new. Those are the rough sort of three that I get from everybody whenever I'm talking to anyone. So especially the first two, that's what was highlighted in the last talk. It's way too big, right? If you go pure MLDSA, you get to more than 14 kilobytes, and most people shy away from that and say, this is not where we want to be. This is not going to be a useful thing in our network. And although it works for a large number of people, Cloudflare pointed out that it's going to break for some people, right? And then Chrome itself came out and said, look, you can kind of get another type of certificate chain. It's about 7K. And they said, no, that's too big. We're not going to worry about that unless there's a quantum computer tomorrow. There's not a quantum computer right now. So that's on pause, right? And then there was this interesting unit that it's not an interesting unit, it's just a kilobyte. But they were looking at how much a kilobyte costs a network. And it's like a substantial cost for some people. So when you increase by even a kilobyte, you have to start taking things into consideration. So we'll use sort of a kilobyte as a unit of bad in this situation to see like how big something gets. So too slow directly applies to things like SLHDSA, takes a long time. MLDSA is too slow mostly because it just has to transmit so many bytes, right? That's what actually slows it down. The system itself, or the scheme itself, is very quick. You don't really have to worry about that. The other one is too new. So for a lot of people think that the scheme is, look at the mic is going everywhere, think that the scheme is just too new, right? It came out yesterday. At least for a bunch of us, it feels like it came out yesterday. So coupled with this, we have the fact that web PKI change is complicated. That's another thing that was highlighted, right? There's a bunch of different users. There's a bunch of different use cases. It's all over the place. There's a bunch of different systems that you have. Some of them are difficult to update. Some of them are impossible to update. Some are on very old technology, so they're slow. Things aren't going to work incredibly well. So generally speaking, that's a problem. That's not very good. So I think we can take a couple things away from this. And those two things are, if we need to switch to a brand new PKI infrastructure, ground up or some brand new thing, it's probably not going to be reasonable in our timelines, right? We have 2030, 2035, somewhere in that neighborhood to get this done. Doing absolutely everything new, absolutely everywhere, it's probably not going to work very well. The other one is, and this one's kind of one that might be controversial, is there are certain parts that just can't be updated. We kind of have to cut our losses on these type of things, right? Like I put can't in quotes because you can pick whatever definition of can't that you want. You won't, you can't, these type of things. We have spent a bunch of time, at least I have where we are, focusing on what you can do with a bunch of can'ts. And I think we just have to say there's going to be a certain small percentage of the internet that's just not going to be able to make this transition with us. So coming up with standards and specs to try and fix that problem doesn't seem like the best use of our time. We should probably focus on getting the big hard part, which is it's large, solved first. So as a side note, implicit in almost all of these conversations is the fact that we actually have to use TLS 1.3 because 1.2 is not getting pulled forward into the post-quantum era. So I'm making it explicit here so that everyone knows that it's not going to be supported. You have to make that transition. So you're going to have to get your customers and yourself over to TLS 1.3. So this was a sort of a free starting point is if you don't know how to start your PQC journey, try and get yourself and all of your customers over to TLS 1.3. See how that goes. See if it's easy. See if it's fun. Once you're there, at least you have a starting point. That's probably a big enough thing for everyone to do. You can just do that and then probably feel good about yourself if you can get it. So I have the next slide. We have a slide deck and there's marketing slides, and I always want to use the fun marketing slides that have just like a big number on it. So I got it in here. So TLS usage right now at 1.3 based on Cloudflare is about 64%. The rest of it's kind of quick, so the protocol. So it could be about 85 to 90%. So that's pretty good. It might not be that bad, but the 15 to 10% that you have left, I did that backwards, 10 to 15% that you have left is really going to be the problem where people have to focus on. So if you take nothing else out of this, start getting TLS 1.2 to 1.3. So how can we start using PQC and PKI, right? Too big, too slow, too new? We just have to address those questions at some point, right? We have to trust it. If we don't trust it, let's not use it. The transfer data can't be too big. Here's a problem. No one's come out and said what too big is yet. So we have to kind of define what too big is, what we're going to be able to accept, and what we're going to go forward with. We're going to have to pay some type of penalty. These things aren't tiny, but we have to kind of come together and go, all right, this is roughly the size that we want. And then the speed of running it and transferring it can be onerous. I'm going to kind of ignore that for MLDSA because it runs fast, and we'll just focus on transmission side. So we'll look at now to how do we get to the point where we get this right now. So I'm going to have a slightly controversial slide. I'm going to say that MLDSA is secure, like a full stop. I'm not doing anything of maybe or whatnot. It's good for like a reasonable definition of security. You can probably come up with one where it's not, but this will be pretty good. So it's not new. That's the one thing. So when I was doing the slides, I quickly went, well, when did dilithium come out? It was like 3-4 months ago, probably. And it turns out that it was actually almost 10 years ago that it came out. So it's a decade. We've got a decade with this one specific thing that we're doing, and we're still kind of hedging our bets on it. There have been lots of eyes on this. It kind of goes with the standardization process. The number of people that are looking at this thing is kind of unprecedented. I don't think it's happened before. This many people that are taking a look and trying to bring this thing down. I mean, there were a couple schemes that we had in the earlier NIST. They got broken so bad that it was cheaper to break them than it was to run the schemes. So we've had a few of those happen. So people were trying to break these. They were working pretty hard, and they didn't have a whole lot of success. Right? So we should be feeling pretty good that this thing is nice and secure, and we can start using it now. It's not always the case that people think that, which is why a lot of MLDSA 87 gets suggested. I'm going to suggest you can just use 44. It's better than what we have right now. It's more secure than even RSA 4096, I believe, if I did the math correct. So the second part, we're going to focus a whole bunch on here. MLDSA is big. There's no way to get around MLDSA being big. So I gave it the least charitable comparison that I possibly could in this nice little table here. And as you see, it's 38 times worse than an ECC key. That's very, very bad. So if you're sending a cert chain, your common chain is 5 signatures, 2 public keys. Things are going to run away kind of quickly, which we kind of know from before with different sizes. So what we're going to do is we're going to look into what it looks like and then see what we can do to try and maybe fix it a little bit. All right, so we'll go through the common cert chain, as I like to call it. This is just, you go to a random website, you'll get something that looks roughly like this, right? I'm assuming most people know cert chains. If not, we'll go through it real quick. There's a root somewhere. You don't transmit that, just sits there for you. There's an intermediate cert a lot of the time, a leaf, and then you sign something like a transcript of a hash hash of a transcript or the hash of a document or whatever you need to sign. So you end up with a signature and a public key going all the way down. For this one, I picked RSA as a root, kind of 4096 as a root, as opposed to the previous one, which picked 2048. But what you get for size is not that unreasonable. It's 1.6 kilobytes, which is doing okay. And no one seems to have any problems with it. Everything works perfectly fine. As when you switch to MLDSA, on the other hand, all over the place, you get some kind of serious problems. As said before, it's 14.7K. Nobody's happy with 14.7K. That's not a thing that people really want to do. There is some data. AWS did a test on a full MLDSA chain, and their performance ranged from like 3 to 6%. So it might not be the end of the world, but it's big. People don't like it. Google doesn't like it. We're kind of stuck on this. So for a quick comparison, just so we don't take the ratio of the numbers as like a thing we need to worry about, you can actually make a bigger RSA chain, right? It's 4096 the whole way down. If you do that, you get one, remember a unit of bad being a kilobyte, you get one more of those on it. And people are kind of okay with that. So I'm going to say 2.6 might be okay. If you want to be really uncharitable to MLDSA, which we kind of haven't for a little while, here's your ECC cert chain. It's 384 bytes. So the ratio of 14.7 to 384 is a real big problem. So people at ECC really are not very happy about a 14.7 change. It's going to cause problems. So what else can we try? And I'm going to say we don't need to do all or nothing. The thing I've seen a lot is, hey, let's switch everything to all MLDSA, or we'll just stick with the classic stuff. So mixing them is not something that a lot of people want to do. Part of that, I think, is trust. The other part is just it's not normally done. So we're going to, as I said at the beginning, we're going to try something slightly different. We're going to start at the leaf, and we're just going to put MLDSA in the leaf. Right? We're going to ignore the SCTs. For a lot of people, that's a nice thing to try and ignore. They're not anyone's favorite thing to have to deal with. We're going to ignore it until we get to the very end of this thing. We're just going to keep them where they are, and we're going to hope that in the future we get something that kind of helps us a little bit with this type of thing. All right, so we got sizes, because sizes are kind of where we're focusing here. You get about 4.5K. I'm going to round to 4.5 because it's the easier number to say with this type of thing. Now that number doesn't look as terrible. And if you're on ECC, you can get down to about 4K, right? Not great by some people's standards, but I mean, we're in the realm of possibility, I think, at this point, right? So for most people, I would posit, this is going to be fairly acceptable thing to do, right? 4.5K. It's not great or anything like that. However, if you take into consideration how big MLDSA is with the public key and the signature, that's 3.7 kilobytes, right? So we have kind of a floor of where we're all going to have to be okay with. It's definitely around 3.7. As we move up to 4.5 seems like an acceptable thing to do. I should mention, I didn't mention it earlier, but I should mention, in all of the drawings, there's the squiggles that represent what's in the certificate. We have, for some reason, just ignored all the stuff that's in a certificate. Sometimes it's not ignorable. It can be a large percentage of what you transmit. So keep that in mind as well when we're going through looking at these sizes. It's not going to be 4.K. It's 4.K plus whatever we've got in the certificate scheme now, right? So I'm gonna say leaf nodes seem good. 4.5K seems okay. You can get down to 4 if you want to, which is half a kilobyte, so half a unit of bad. And I now want to kind of look into what can we do to get this transition to go. We'll ignore some standards bodies things for a little bit, but what can we do? So I'm thinking we can use 47, which yes, is coming. I think most people know that, and we can use this really to our advantage to help us get PQC combined with the leaf nodes, right? If we start to leverage this type of thing, it should look kind of okay. Right, so there's a couple things. We're going to do this PQC transition. We don't really want to start revoking classical certificates right now. That's a strain on the system we don't really need. So we can kind of double use how long it's going to be till you transition to 47. So say you have 6 months left on your cert, spend 6 months making a plan on how you're going to transition to MLDSA 44. And when the time comes for you to update to 47 and an MLDSA certificate at the same time. So you can use this natural life cycle to get things to work. On top of that, when you get down to 47 days, you don't have as much time to have problems happen, right? Like if you have a 1-year MLDSA cert and over the course of the year, your experiment didn't go very well, that's not going to feel good. You'll have to revoke it. It's not going to go very well. Instead, you can just use the 47 days, set your experiment up, see if it works. I mean, if it breaks, you got to bring it out. But if it's just a performance degradation that you have to figure out and try and live with, you got 47 days. It's kind of a nice spot to be in to move forward. So it's a nice thing to leverage. And then, if we want to, we can get some bonus points by working up the chain, right? So one of the things I've noticed is, and Microsoft is doing this and a whole bunch of other people, we want to start with the root, which is kind of a hard thing. It's harder to get people on board with because it's a long-term thing. We can work the other way, right? Start with your leaf certificates, run your tests, make sure things are okay, work up the chain. Change your intermediate, see how that goes. Kind of a lot of experiments going on here, and you're not going to do it necessarily in general. But when you do that, you get to about 8K. Again, this isn't fantastic. It's not a number that's magical or anything like that. But again, it is underneath some sort of transmission barriers. And then if you want to work up again, you can work up all the way. Again, we said that I said, you guys didn't say anything. I said that we were going to ignore the SCTs. So that's the other, we're going to continue to ignore the SCTs. I'm going to do that for a couple different reasons. One of them being it's more difficult to change. You can't really do it yourself. You have to work with somebody else. And the other one is we just want to keep it somewhat smaller. So 10K, bad, but it's like roughly 50% better than like 15K. Well, that math was wrong, but you save 5 kilobytes if you just don't even change the SCTs, which is a nice thing. Gives you some sort of transmission barriers to play with, right? Some of I actually can't remember. I should have written it down in the notes. Some of the problem getting up to 14K is you get over some limit in some network. The packets don't get there, you have a problem. You bring it down to 10, you have less of a chance of running into problems on different type of networks. Right? So this is not particularly complicated. You just want to start with the leafs, use MLDSA 44, slowly work up if you can. It's not necessarily necessary to work up either, potentially, because the future might give us some things that we can use that help to keep things small so that it doesn't sort of run away in terms of size, right? So we're gonna play a predict the future game. It's gonna work real well. You know how predicting the future works. It always goes incredibly well. Everything works perfectly fine. The last NIST standardized scheme, every scheme that we all wanted got through without getting any problems, except for the ones that got broken. But we do have NIST doing some more additional schemes. And I hope, this is kind of a prayer, we get the schemes in like the next 5 years. Their timelines are 2030, 2035. It'd be nice to get some schemes by 2030 so we have some time to get it to the end. So I'm ignoring Hawk here, but there are no general purpose signature schemes that we're really going to get out of this thing. So we have some special purpose schemes that we're going to want to look at, right? So there's one called ski sign. I don't know how many people know what these are. It's It's isogeny based. It's very slow, but it's got very, very attractive public keys and signature sizes, something that we can leverage. And then because of the way the SCT works, they don't transmit public keys. They're a really nice candidate for multivariate, for people who like multivariate. This is a good thing. For the rest of us, we'll be a little concerned, but it does get into a really nice spot for how you work. So I'm going to present the future of how we go. It's tortoise.o. I want to make sure you know it's going to run real slow, but tortoise did beat the hare, so we should end up being okay. So if we go to this sort of scheme, we get something that's kind of nice looking. So if you use ski sign for the root, which you don't have to transmit, ski sign for the intermediate, again, MLDSA for the public key at the leaf, you're fine. And then this time we're going to change the SCTs. We're going to try and use multivariate. So this ends up being 4.5K, another 4.5K, which is kind of the same as what we had from before, right? So I'm going to say that 4.5K is not that bad. This size seems to be okay. So if we have changed the leaf certificates, we'll go with that, from before, we're sitting at about 4.5. If NIST gets these things through and we're all real happy with what we get something else that ends up with roughly 4.5, right? So this sits roughly between the ECC and the RSA chain. It's okay. As I mentioned, start with the leaf. So there's a thing called photosynthesis, and it's the newest and greatest brand new PKI coming from Google. And coincidentally, the size of that thing is roughly 4.5 kilobytes. So future looks like we may be able to get something somewhere around 4.5 kilobytes. That number doesn't seem to be too onerous, as I said before. So we can get things moving in the right direction without causing any problems. Now, it's not perfect. It's not like we moved to this future thing and everything's just fine, works on everybody's system, and off we go. This has pretty much every conceivable type of math that you'd want to do. You'll get it with this schemes. If you get ski sign in there, it's going to be real slow compared to an MLDSA chain. They'll get faster over time. We'd have to test to see how this impacts the system, but transmission size has sort of been the thing that everyone brings up as being a fairly serious problem, and it definitely addresses the transmission size, right? This is a 3 algorithm chain, got it? The code complexity and the code size, it's high, right? Now, I don't think that matters for most things. Most people just include OpenSSL, off we go, everything's just fine. But for some people, that might be fairly problematic. So you'd have to look into that. The other thing it has multivariate, if you haven't figured out. I'm a little bit skeptical of multivariate. It's had a somewhat rocky road through the NIST competitions. Didn't make it last time. We'll see if it makes it this time. So again, not perfect, but it's not that bad. So we'll go over a quick summary of what the takeaways are. It's not incredibly complicated. We can just start using MLDSA now, find a way to get it to work, start going with it. You can trust it. I guess I'll start with that one. You can trust it. Let's start going with that. Start with the leaf certificates. It's kind of the inverse of the approach I've seen, but I think it's the easiest way for us to start getting PQC adoption in there. And then test, always test, and then you can move up the chain as you feel comfortable. Don't just necessarily do it for fun. And if we get ski sign and multivariate, we can send only 4.5 kilobytes. So I think the limit of too big for me is more closer to 7 where Google put it. I think 4.5 is probably nice. So I think we're doing okay there if we get that. So everybody is asking, I can see, all those that are falling asleep, what can I do to help you? And so my first thing is contact your local IATF and CAB forum representative and try to get them to approve this now. Corey's sitting right over there. You can go talk to him. IATF just did pass MLDSA through to the next step, so that's good. But right now it's in a holding pattern, and it's kind of in a, I'm gonna say it's an artificial holding pattern. Let's get this through. Shift the mindset from MLDSA being PQC to just being the next tool. NIST already did that for you. They've deprecated what you have now. So just start using it. And then be able to change your certificates quickly. 47 is coming. This is a perfect time to synergize, get those work in. Crypto agility, another thing that you need in there. If you have a bingo card, I got them all now. And get comfortable with mixed certificates. And then we have a thing, if you need to play around with certificates, we can generate certificates for you. You can just go to a playground in the labs there and have a good time. And that is it. Anybody got questions?
We have one online question. It comes from Scott. He is questioning, wouldn't it make more sense to start with the root instead of the leaf? My question in addition then would be, what is the recommendation and why?
It will say, so everyone wants to start with the root, and that makes sense if you're thinking that we're just going to, that MLDSA is the just PQC thing that we are being forced to use and we don't really want it and we need to start to trust and work down from there. And I'm kind of saying, no, MLDSA is just our next tool. It's just a thing that we have. It's the replacement, at least from NIST's point of view, for RSA and ECC. And the easiest way to make a change is to start at the leaf. It's not the easiest to make the change at the root. Everything has to change. It's got to get into trust source. Everyone has to trust. Like, it ends up being the more complicated and most difficult way for us to go about getting this thing solved. If you start at the leaf, it's the easiest way for you to do this. You can get them the same size as if you did the inverted way, and you get to start running your tests quickly. You're in a little bit more control than having to wait on CA for them to do what they need to do. So it's the most approachable and simplistic way to start to start getting these changes in. So that's what I would say. It's simple. It's easy. This isn't complicated. I didn't reinvent anything or do anything special. It's just the most straightforward, simple approach.
From the audience.
Yeah, just a follow-up to the root question. If we start with the root, one of the key things is with the short-lived certificate, we become quantum safe. In other words, the value of the data reduces, right? And the data transmission, you don't have to transmit the root, so that sort of saves the size, right, or the latency that adds it. So which means, wouldn't it make sense to start at the root from a strategic perspective and from a test perspective? You want to test the performance and all that. I can test with the leaves per se. But for a rollout perspective, would it make sense to start at the root?
If you have a private CA and you control absolutely everything and want to do whatever you want, that's fine. But in a public, on the internet way, you now have to convince a CA to put MLDSA as a root. And then you have to convince the browser to take it, and you have to do that all from start to finish. So it's not a problem. You can do that. I'm not saying this is the only solution. I'm saying this is the solution that is the easiest thing for us to do to just start going forward. And again, there is no quantum computer today, so we can just start playing with MLDSA just as an engineering exercise to see if this will fit. And it's the easiest way to see if this thing is going to fit. That's what I think.
So I started playing with MLDSA on my private CA, but how about the browser just doesn't take it?
Yeah, so please contact your local IETF and CAB forum representative.
Yeah.
Corey's right over there, and start getting them to change. This is, I mean, I'll be like directly, it would be very nice if we could get Google and Mozilla to allow us to use these. And I think it's less likely for them to say no if we're not trying to make them jam something in the root store and just say, we know you have this in your code. Can you start supporting it so that the rest of us can start playing around with it in our networks? It's going to take like 10 years to fix this, so it's going to be hard.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you. I have a question, again, starting from the root CA, more on the policy side. So there are a lot of cases in which, say, in private PKIs, where you cannot use, say, a weaker key to encrypt or verify, a weaker key, down the chain. So that makes sense for a private PKI. And I was wondering, does the public web PKI have a similar policy? And if so, how do you solve the chicken egg problem that you cannot, use, say, RSA to validate MLDSA key?
Well, you can do that. Like, I mean, you can. I don't know the actual Corey's right over there. If you want a policy thing, that one's actually serious. He can help with that one. I don't know what the policy on the public is, but I mean, if you put MLDSA at the leaf, you're right. The root is sort of the strongest thing that you have in the scheme. It's not going to be a breaking problem if something lower than it is stronger, but the implication is that the strength of the chain is the weakest link, right? So if you have RSA 4096 at the top, 2048 in the middle, and MLDSA 44 at the bottom, your weakness is RSA 2048 on that chain, right? Roughly speaking, how that's going to work. So that's okay. We have things like that now where there's more strength on the top, less on the bottom. Putting more strength on the bottom is not really going to cause too much of a problem. I guess it could get confusing for some people if they think the strength of the entire chain is the strength of MLDSA. But I mean, if you put MLDSA in the chain, I should say this as the security part, it would be the most secure part of your chain in terms of bits that we think. We can talk after, by the way.
What about hybrids and composites?
There it is. I did not put hybrids in here in any way, shape, or form. I did make a quick comment about trying to solve the most direct problem that we have right now. I'm not particularly fond of hybrids. One of the reasons in this forum why I would say that is I think they're slowing down us getting MLDSA, and I just want it as soon as possible so we can start testing with it. Maybe it's selfish, but I know things are going to break where we are. I want it quickly. I want to be able to deal with stuff then. So hybrids, they can happen. I would like them to happen in a parallel track, not some holding pattern for MLDSA. They go do their thing. The customers that we need that are going to need it for support will support it. But I would suggest pure MLDSA and a, in quotes, crypto agile system.
That's all the time we have for questions. Yes, thank you. First, please, Shane. Oh, no. Thank you very much, Shane. Insightful presentation, lots of good content. Again, I would encourage all of you to take advantage of Shane's presence here to continue this discussion. And again, thank you very much, Shane. It was very insightful, very...
How do you get to a quantum-safe state? That depends on the current state of your digital security infrastructure, as well as your level of visibility, control, and automation over those systems. Check your level of preparedness with the Entrust Post-Quantum Readiness Assessment. Whether you're already on the path to quantum safe or just beginning your journey, Entrust can equip you with the right knowledge and solutions. There are many paths to a quantum-safe future. Secure yours by taking the Entrust Post-Quantum Readiness Assessment today.